Hello, everyone. My name is Dre. I'm a customer success engineer here at Moveworks, and I'll be our host for today's AI agent workshop session. Let's go ahead and dive in with the upcoming sessions. We'll sort of talk about what's coming in the new year, and then we'll get to the content. So first up is today, of course, we're doing January 8th, is HubSpot Opportunity Management. We'll discuss building use cases that sort of connect to HubSpot and can allow for, again, opportunity management. Not next week, but next week we'll be skipping, but the following week, January 22nd, we will have a session about adding Jira users to projects. And then on the following week, on the 29th, we'll have a session about changing benefits elections with chat. So those are the sessions that are coming up. Please definitely register for these in advance. We would love to have you join us. Today, though, we'll be discussing HubSpot Opportunity Management. This is sort of a different format or a different style maybe than some of our prior webinars. So I'm going to show an example use case that would be used potentially as part of a larger project to build out HubSpot Opportunity Management use cases. And then we'll work together to build sort of a second use case or a follow-up use case that goes along with that example. So after that, we'll have a Q&A section. So please have any questions written down that you want to discuss, and we'll have time at the end to get to those. So let's look at what this use case should look like, or what we want out of this use case. So this is an example of one HubSpot opportunity management use case, and specifically just querying for opportunities. When I say an opportunity in HubSpot today, what I'm referring to are deals that are qualified. So I'll show the HubSpot instance in a second to sort of clarify that. But what's happening in this example here and in this diagram is the user comes to the bot and asks, what open opportunities do we have? The HubSpot use case is then going to query for any qualified deals and then return that and show that within chat. You can imagine right away, I think, some follow-up use cases, such as potentially updating existing opportunities or moving them from qualified to things like closed or pending, things like that. You also might imagine a use case where we create a new opportunity. So we'll sort of figure out which one we want to build as we go. For the query use case, this is the general structure, and I think you'll find that largely this is sort of how these use cases are structured across multiple HubSpot use cases. But we have a user comes to the bot and triggers some plugin, which is going to be comprised of the triggering criteria and a compound action, and then the compound action will be either a list or a set of different actions. But in this case, for the query, it's really just one action. So the action is going to be to query or search for deals with some predefined parameters. So in this case, deal stage is equal to qualified to buy. We're going to pull that directly from HubSpot using our HubSpot connector, and then we're going to format that data and return it to the end user. Well, really quickly, let's go ahead and look at our deals that we have configured in our HubSpot instance. So you can see we have test deal and HubSpot new deal. And let's go ahead and see what the use case looks like. All right. You can see I already tried it out here, but I'll clear so we can see. This looks like. So I'm going to come to the bot and just ask what are the open opportunities? I can spell it correctly. Okay. I did not succeed at spelling it correctly, but that's okay. The bot will understand what I'm saying. What are the open opportunities? And it's going to call my plugin. It's currently called it, and it's trying to get the information back. It's going to process that information, and then it will present it to me once it is able to get the API return. So this is going to be limited based on the speed of API. And let's see here. So now we have the opportunities that we had listed. So we have this HubSpot new deal and test deal. Both are set to qualified to buy. We see created at and close date. All of this information, again, matching what we see in our HubSpot instance because it's being pulled directly from there. So let's go ahead and dive into building. So I gave the demo of sort of the example use case, and this is where things are going to kind of become a little different. I now want to sort of walk through building a use case with you. So if you are on the call and you have access to your HubSpot instance and Postman, you can kind of follow along and do what I'm doing. We'll go ahead and try to build a use case in the remaining time that we have for this call. And then again, we'll have a Q&A section at the end. So if you have questions, please hold them until then. But let's jump in. So what I want to do then is let's go ahead and build a use case to build new or add new deals. So specifically deals that are qualified to buy. We're going to add a new deal. So let's go ahead and test our APIs first and see that we have everything we need. So step one is going to be making sure that we have an API token. In HubSpot, you can do that by going to the settings menu here and then going down to integrations and then connected apps. See, I've already created a connected app here, but what you'll want to do is create a new connected app, and then it'll produce for you an API token. So you'll want to produce the API token, write that down. With that API token, we'll then be able to make these calls. The other thing worth mentioning is that you need to configure certain scopes. So the scopes that I've configured for this particular API token are the CRM schemas deals read, CRM schemas deals write, CRM objects deals sensitive read, objects deals read, and object deals write. So this is probably more than you need specifically for querying and creating new deals. I would guess that this is probably all you really need in order to do that, the deals read and deals write. These others are just available in case we want to then use this token for additional use cases, which perhaps we want to do in some hypothetical scenario. So once we have this access token, we want to then leverage that to test our APIs. So I have some APIs set up in Postman already. Let's go ahead and go back, and we're going to go back to our deals so we can sort of follow along as we're making API calls. Let's go to Postman now. Let me go ahead and do a test query to make sure that my API token is working correctly. You can see that the way that we're passing this is as an authorization header. So authorization is the key, and the value is going to be bearer, space, and your token. That'll be important for when we set up our connector. And then specifically, so the list deals API, I'm just using this to test, but again, we can see the results that come back are the deals that we have created or know that exist in HubSpot already. The use case that we saw earlier uses this search API instead, which is actually a post call to the objects deals search API. And you need to pass in what properties you want back, as well as filters. So in this case, we're filtering for deal stage is equal to qualified to buy. If we call this, I expect to get 2 back. And in fact, we do get both of our results back. So let's go ahead and create a deal now. Let's just make sure that this works. So I have this sort of pre-set up. Again, we're going to use this header authorization token scheme. We have now a post call to the HubSpot API. The api.hubapi.com is the endpoint, or the base URL. The endpoint is CRM v3 objects deals. Body of our API call is going to contain the details about the deal. And so I think at a bare minimum, probably what I'm thinking about if I am trying to create a new opportunity or a new deal to be tracked in HubSpot, I at least want like an amount, a name of the deal, and then what stage I want them to go in. So in this case, because we're talking about opportunities, I'm just going to go ahead and create it automatically into qualified to buy. But of course, you could flex this use case to potentially make different kinds of deals. Of course, there are different objects in HubSpot as well. So you can kind of hopefully imagine how you might build other HubSpot use cases using this general sort of template or workflow. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and set deal stage to qualified to buy. So let's test this and see that we can create a deal, and we'll just validate that this works. Very good. So we can see that there's a new deal. We have deal name is our demo example, and we have deal stage is qualified to buy, and we have amount is 100 grand or 100,000, excuse me. Now there's a bunch of other information here. Now all of these properties are really something that you could be filling. In this case, again, we're going to keep it simple just for the sake of the call, but again, use your imagination and try to think of ways that you might be able to expand the usability of this use case, or at least make it work better for your particular business processes. Now that we have this, what I'm going to go ahead and do is a little bit maybe confusing at first. So what I want to do is copy the curl command for this API call. Reason being that the bot is actually, or the Creator Studio is capable of importing curl commands. It'll just make things easier for us in the long run. So I'm going to copy that curl command, and we're going to go ahead and open up Creator Studio. Creator Studio open. I will reshare my screen. And here we are. We are in Creator Studio. You can see this is my demo that we saw earlier in the call, this get qualified deal or qualified to buy deals. So with that, we already have a connector. So we can look at that connector if you'd like. But we will maybe save that for the Q&A section. If you want to look closer to the connector, we can come back to that. We're going to go to actions, though, and we can see that we have this HubSpot search for qualified deals action. We now need a new action, which is HubSpot create qualified deal. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll click create, and I'm going to use that curl command that we copied earlier, and we're going to paste it here to import curl. Very good. Import that. And you'll see that it's going to go ahead and fill out pretty much everything we need. Now, I do want to use the connector that we set up before, so I don't want to reuse the data that is coming from the curl command, but sort of allows for things to be templatized a little bit easier. So I'm going to find my HubSpot connector. This is Dre HubSpot. Go ahead and apply. That's just going to overwrite the authorization details here to use what I've already configured for our other HubSpot use case. Again, you can modify everything here. You can also go to the connectors studio, Creator Studio connectors here and make modifications there as well. But this is what we need for this particular use case. I'm not going to look at the headers, and I'm going to remove anything from the curl command that was brought over that we don't need. So that would be this cookie. I am going to leave content type. That can be helpful in certain circumstances. We'll look at parameters. I don't see anything here. We didn't have anything configured in Postman either, so this is expected. Now we'll look at the body. We want to get an amount, a deal name, and a deal stage, or at least that we want to set these things. So deal stage, I'm going to say, is static. The reason being, this is a use case for creating opportunities or new open opportunities. In this definition of that, we are always creating qualified to buy deals. So the deal stage will remain constant, but deal name will be something. So let's give that a variable. Maybe call that deal name. Yeah, we'll call that deal name. Okay. Deal name, and then we want an amount. So we'll call this deal amount, something like that. So now that we have these here, I'm expecting that we have input variables, which it looks like we do. So I'm going to add some example values for the bot to clue in on. This is just going to help it with understanding when you make a utterance in the bot or you try to talk to the bot. It's going to help it sort of parse out which information belongs where. So for deal amount, I'm going to go ahead and put the same amount just to keep things easy. We'll call it, 100,000.00. And then deal name, I'll call something like maybe example deal. Yeah, we'll just call it example deal. I think that matches the format of calling it an example value. So, all right. So now that we have these values set, when I click test, it's going to fill these values into the body here where we have defined these variables, denoted by curly bracket, variable name, curly bracket. That's how you reference an input variable. And then we expect to see this show up in our HubSpot instance over here. So let's go ahead and, yeah, you can see our demo example deal there from earlier. So we have 3. Let's go and see if that we can get a 4th. Very good. Okay, so we do have a 4th now. I can see that the created date is right now. I can see a new deal ID. The amount is what we set. The deal name is what we set, and deal stage is set to qualify to buy as expected. I'm going to click this just to make sure the schema generated correctly, but it looks like everything did. And this is going to be useful later on when we're building our compound action. So I just want to make sure that this is actually populated for just ease of use, really. Okay, so this is looking good, though. I see a 201 response. I don't see any errors here, and I'm getting back the return that I expect. If I go here and I refresh the page, I can see a new deal. It's an example deal. So this is now 4 deals. This is exactly as expected. Everything's looking good. Let's go ahead and save our action. And we'll title it something like HubSpot create new qualified to buy deal. And for the description, I'm going to say create a new open opportunity in HubSpot. I think qualified to buy deal just makes more sense as part of the API name because that's literally what we're doing. But I'm going to give it the common parlance here so that way when the users are in chat, they can kind of get things to work and understand what's happening without having to understand the underlying structure of things. So we'll just say create a new open opportunity in HubSpot. All right, we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll go to our actions and just make sure it's showing up. It looks like it is. HubSpot, create new qualified deal, or qualified to buy deal. We'll go ahead and save that. And let's go to compound actions. We're going to create now a new compound action that allows us to then use that action we just created. So I'm going to go to compound actions and click create. And the name, I'm going to go ahead and just call it Dre create qualified to buy deal in HubSpot. Make it easy to understand later on. And I'm going to give it a description, create a new open opportunity in, we'll say Dre's HubSpot instance. It's a shared instance, so I just want to make sure that everybody knows this is my doing. So we'll go and click next now that we have this configured. Something I got to type, but we'll go ahead and do it correctly. Okay, so the first step we need to do is add the sort of step structure. So I'm going to press Command K, and we're going to get the different expression templates, and I'm going to click steps. And now you can see that we have the basic structure. Now I want to add an action. So I'm going to go ahead and press Command K again. And this time I'm going to look for this HubSpot create new qualified deal action. And that's going to autofill pretty much everything that I need to start with. So you can see the output key here. I'm fine with this. I'm going to leave this alone. So we're just going to call it HubSpot create new qualified to buy deal result. This is the return of whenever we make that API call. So if you remember what we saw in Postman, that JSON return, we expect to be saved now to this variable. We have this action name, HubSpot create new qualified to buy deal. This is just referencing the action that we configured before. We're going to need progress updates. This is just going to be sort of a quality of life configuration. I'm going to go ahead and add some here. So the on-complete message might be something like, let's see, what do we want to say? Open opportunity has been successfully created. And then for pending, we'll say something like creating new open opportunity. Something like that. This is really just giving the bot something to work with when it's trying to tell the user sort of status updates, so we can see where this comes into play later. Now the input arguments we need to pass. So we want deal amount and deal name. In this case, it's just sort of saving placeholders, but really we need input fields. So I'm going to add something here, and then we will create input fields for them here in a moment. So let's go ahead and go to input fields and do this first, actually. So we'll do required, and we'll say that this first required input field is deal amount. I'm going to call it deal amount. We'll just call it the same thing for ease of reading. Call it deal amount, and we'll give it an example value, sort of the same as we did for the action. And we'll plug that in. This is going to be a string, believe it or not. I know this looks like sort of a float or something, but in this case, because it's just raw text being input, we're going to pass it as this. Okay, very good. So now we're going to go ahead and add a deal name. Again, I'm going to reuse the name. It just makes it a little bit easier for configurations, and we'll call this example deal 2, just in case we make an API call with this later on. It'll show up in our deals list as example deal 2. Again, this is going to be a string. That looks all very good. Now we want to reference these input fields that we just used. So again, we'll just make sure that the names are the same, and this will make it easy for copying and pasting. But we need to reference these input fields by first saying data. This is going to like list into the available fields that we have configured, and you can already see them showing up here under variables. So I'm going to say data.deal amount, and here we want data.deal name. Very good. So this is what you need to do to configure the action. Finally, we need to add a result, and let's go ahead and do that here. I'm going to tab back to the same level as our action and add a result. Actually return, if I remember correctly. Yep, very good. Return. Now we have an output mapper. And what I want to do is just return the JSON output of the API call we make to HubSpot back to the bot so that it can interpret any errors. It can give the user sort of a status update once completed. The bot's very good at understanding what kinds of data need to be returned. So I'm going to say that this is called HubSpot return. And we're going to pass in this qualified to buy deal result. So there we go. That is a complete compound action. We don't need to do anything else here. I'm going to go ahead and save, and we will test here shortly. But this is sort of the process that I would go through to build this, this use case. Very good. So we'll go ahead and click return to home. going to try to get through this last part very quickly. There's not much left, and then hopefully we'll have time to test, but I'll open up to a Q&A as we're testing. I'm going to click Publish Workflow to Plugin. Now, this is in Compound Actions, and we're looking at the compound action we just created. You can't go straight to plugins because it's not been promoted to be a plugin yet. We need to do that in this place. So we're in compound actions. We're looking at our new compound action. I'm going to click the three buttons here, the three dot button, and then we're going to click Publish Workflow to Plugin. It's going to go ahead and fill in the compound action name under use case name. The short description is going to be copied from the compound action. Really, all that we're defining here by promoting it to a plugin is our triggering criteria and our launch criteria. So everything should really be the same as your use case as defined within your compound action. And then everything else here is sort of optional. So we have this user consent required before execution. In this case, I don't think we need to have user consent. There's no particular risk with what we're doing. You can always go and just delete the HubSpot deal that we create if it's created erroneously. So I'm going to say no, we don't need user consent. And then an informational message to the user during execution. I want to really just like leave things alone and let the bot interpret it. Now, there is a particular piece of information we want to share with the end user. We would add that here. However, in this particular case, I don't really think that's necessary. So we'll just leave this blank and then let the bot kind of decide how it wants to communicate to the end user. So let's go ahead and press next here. Now we're defining the trigger criteria. So it's going to go ahead and try to present me with some options of example trigger criteria. It looks like it's struggling right now with the information that we've provided it, which I think is totally fair. So I'm going to go ahead and say we'll manually add some trigger criteria. So trigger when the end user says, maybe we want to say like we imagine the end user comes to the bot and says something like, I want to create a new open opportunity. That might be something we want to trigger this use case. I'd like to log a new qualified to say the same word, qualified to buy deal. Can you help me create a new open op in HubSpot? How can I report a new open opportunity? And maybe we just want to even say something like, I think there's a new opportunity with, we'll just give some random name like Acme, and I would like to log it. Very good. So now that the purple bar is all the way across, we know that we have at least 5 utterances here. I'm going to go ahead and copy one just for triggering testing later. I want to create a new open opportunity is what we'll copy, and then we'll go ahead and press next. So our triggering criteria are defined. You can always come back to this and add new positive or negative triggering utterances, meaning things that we expect the bot to show the use case for and things that we don't expect the bot to show the use case. So let's go ahead and continue. So we'll press next. Now we want a launch option. I'm going to launch to selected emails in this case. This is a pretty normal way to do testing. We're just going to launch it to just my user. That is my real email. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me at tluckado@moveworks.ai. I'm going to leave this open. So we don't want it to be launched to production. All this is really doing is enabling analytics. So no, we don't want to do this until we're launched to more people. And then data redaction, we don't really care about this, so I'm going to leave this alone. But if you are interested in redacting sensitive data, you can click this and it will do so. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And very good. We're going to go ahead and return to home. Now we have a plugin, we have a compound action, and we have actions. So everything now should work. If I go to the chat and ask it to create a new open op, which we will do in a moment, it should, in principle, ask for the different things that are required to actually do the submission of this new open opportunity. It should create it, and then we can query it using our first use case. So let's go ahead and go to chat and see if we can get it to work. Sometimes it takes a few minutes for it to actually go to production. It's possible that it won't work right away, but let's see if we can get it to do it. So I'm just going to ask the exact same question that we had before. And actually, I'm going to do it in this window. I think it's a little bit easier to read. We're going to say, I want to create a new open opportunity, and let's see if we can get the use case to trigger. Okay, so now it's going to ask for the name and the amount of the new open op that we want to create. I'm going to say the name should be test op from chat, and the amount, I'll just make it easy for the bot, is we'll say 120.00. So you can see that it's going to fill in this value in the expected format. It's going to say the name is testop from chat with an amount of 120,000. It's going to update once completed. So it's mapping that data using slot resolvers into our API call. And then it's going to make that API call, and we're going to see if it works. So the new open opportunity named testop from chat with an amount of 120,000 has been successfully created. So now let's see if we can get it to query from this chat. So what are the open ops? And let's see if we can get it to trigger that same use case from before and show us. So it looks like it has triggered the same use case. Now let's see if it can give us this new opportunity we just created. We have a couple here now. We have like 5, which is going to be sort of on the limit of the number of use cases or the number of records it might return at one time in a clean and easy reading way. So this is a little bit of a up in the air whether or not this will work. Let's see if this comes back. Very good. So now we do have all 5 deals. We have HubSpot new deal, test deal, demo example deal, test op from chat. And this is the one we just created. So there you go. That's end to end, start to finish, how I would have built a use case for, in this case, creating new HubSpot deals. You can imagine doing the exact same thing if you wanted to do like an update HubSpot deal use case. The beauty is that the bot, especially when you're building things with Plugin Studio, will keep some of the context from before. So in this case, if I said, go ahead and update deal 5, it would be able to get the deal ID from the prior API call that it made, and know to plug that in if that was the information we need to pass into the API to actually update that record. But I think that was hopefully that shows sort of how quick you can get new use cases live using AAE. So let's wrap things up before we go to the Q&A section. Let me click slideshow here. I just want to share a couple of resources for follow-up. The first is going to be our Creator Studio Developer Certification course. This is found on our Academy platform, where you can follow guided training modules and watch step-by-step videos to sort of build some key use cases that get you upskilled and ready to use Creator Studio. At the end of it, there is a multiple choice exam that you can take to get a certification, which is publicly shareable on LinkedIn and whatnot. Really cool resource. The other 2 resources that I wanted to share before we close things up are our documentation portal, which you can think of as your reference material for all things Moveworks, including Creator Studio and Plugin Studio. Specifically, I would recommend looking at the tutorials and guides. There are going to be many different sort of step-by-step guides of how to deploy and build specific use cases. Really fantastic resource. Finally, the last one and not least is the developer community. This is sort of your forum where you can go and ask questions about Creator Studio, or again, really anything Moveworks related, to other customers who are already using Moveworks, who are already comfortable using or maybe have gone through the same types of deployments that you're looking to do yourself, as well as the ability to talk to engineers and product owners and developers and things like that who work internally to Moveworks. So really fantastic resource. I'm actually in the community as well a lot, so if you want to reach out to me, that's a very, very good place to do so. All right, and let's move to the Q&A section. We'll leave things open. I'll stop sharing my screen, and if there are any questions, we can answer them now. All right. I'm not seeing any questions coming through, so I'm going to go ahead and close things up, but thank you very much for joining us this week. Next week, we'll have a hiatus, and then the following week, we will be catching up again, this time discussing Jira adding Jira users to Jira projects. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you later.